Now let us move to the second part of this lecture. The lecture that we are continuing, we'll move to the second part of this lecture. In the second part, we'll consider Gauss transformation. Now, we said, or in our discussion, we found out that A and phi are not unique. They are not uniquely defined. I just told you that, and I expected that you will accept that. If you are not accepting that, what I told you, if you are not accepting that, then let me give you some example. Let us, what we say, seeing is believing. So let us look at some examples. The first example is, I will change them. A and phi, let us change them. We will add some constant to them and change them, A and phi. Now what will happen? So A is a vector, I add a constant to it. Then I take a curl of that or divergence of that. Now curl, divergence, both are differential operators. So if I differentiate a constant, that is going to give me 0. Which means if I add anything to A or subtract anything to A, then taking a curl or taking a differentiation is not going to be affected. So if I differentiate A only, or I differentiate A plus a constant, both are going to give me same value. Same thing is for phi. So phi plus a constant, then I differentiate that. For example, suppose you have a function fx, right? Fx is equal to x square. Differentiate that with respect to x. What you will get? 2x. Now let me say that fx is equal to x square plus c. Differentiate that with respect to x, what you will get? 2x. Now fx is equal to x square and f1x is equal to x square plus c. If I differentiate both, and differentiation of fx will give me 2x, differentiation of f1x also will give me 2x. So by adding or subtracting a constant is not going to change it, right? So which means fx is not unique, because fx can be something, some function plus a constant. Unless I define that constant exclusively, it is not unique. That is what you have seen in your integral equations. If you integrate fx dx, you get gx provided, and d of gx is equal to fx. Then integrating fx dx gives you gx plus c. This is indefinite integral. It always gives you a constant plus c. Now how to remove that constant? Make it definite. So integration from a1 to a2 fx dx is a definite value. So then you get a definite integral. So in that case, that is purely defined, properly defined, unique. The solution is unique. Otherwise, the solution is not unique. So long as it is not unique, I can change them. I can change them by adding some constant to A and phi. That means I have more flexibility, or I have more freedom. There are many possibilities of finding A and phi, right? And so if there are many possibilities, then we say that these things are invariants under Gauss, or the Maxwell's equations are Gauss invariants. Why we say that? That we'll see little while from now. But Maxwell, if I add something to A or something to phi, a constant to A or a constant to phi, my Maxwell's equations are not going to change. For example, we have taken curl of E is equal to minus dou B by dou T. Now I can say curl of E plus C, where C is a constant, is also equal to minus dou B by dou T, because curl of C is equal to 0, which means Maxwell's equation is invariant. There is no change in Maxwell's equation, right? So Maxwell's equation, in this case, Maxwell's equations are Gauss invariant. So if they are Gauss invariant, let us say we have some scalar function ft, then for that scalar function, the following Gauss transforms will leave B and E invariant or unchanged. Invariant means they are not going to vary, which means they are not changing. So they will not change. Now I said I can add something or subtract something. Let me start with phi. So instead of phi, I subtract something from phi. Phi minus dou T of F. And let me write that as phi dash. So phi was my scalar potential. I am saying that it is not unique. So I can add something or subtract something from that. So phi minus dou Tf, that is my phi dash. Right. Similarly, I will say A dash is equal to A plus grad phi. So I have F is some scalar function. I am using the same scalar function in both the cases. Now I have changed A to A dash, phi to phi dash using a scalar function F. Phi dash is equal to phi minus dou Tf and A dash is equal to A plus grad F. Now, if I do this, whether it is going to affect my previous calculations or whatever I have obtained or whatever I am going to obtain later. Let us see that. Right? We said that A and phi are non-specific. Using that, we are looking at this. Now, E dash becomes minus dou T A dash minus grad phi dash, because E is equal to minus dou T A minus grad phi. Now I have changed A to A dash, phi to phi dash. I expect that E will be also changing. So E will become E dash. If A has become A dash, phi has become phi dash, E becomes E dash. So E dash is equal to minus dou T A dash minus grad phi dash. So E dash is equal to A dash. I know what is A dash. A dash is equal to A plus grad phi, A plus grad F. So E dash is equal to minus dou T of A plus grad F minus grad of phi dash. Phi dash is equal to phi minus dou Tf. So for that I put a minus grad of phi minus dou Ts. Let me rearrange that. So if I rearrange that, minus grad phi minus dou Ta, I bring them together. Then I have grad of dou Tf minus dou T of grad F. Now they are operating on this same function F. Dou grad is a spatial operator, dou T is a temporal operator, so I can interchange them. So grad of dou T is same as dou T of grad. Therefore, grad of dou Tf is equal to dou T of grad F. Now what I have done there, grad of dou Tf minus dou T of grad F. Let me cancel them. X minus X. So that will cancel out, that will become 0. So if I do that, That gives me E dash is equal to minus grad phi minus dou TA. What is minus grad phi minus dou TA? That is E, which means E dash is equal to E, which means E has not changed. It is invariant. Even under these transformations, under these additions, E has not changed. E is not going to change. So I have a freedom of selecting the potentials. What are the potentials? A and phi. So I have a freedom of selecting A and phi, the potentials A and phi. Now to do that, I can impose some convenient constraints between them. For selecting these potentials, I can impose some convenient constraints between them, the constraints that are convenient to me, right? And so if I do that, what I will get? So let us look at that, what is going to happen. I hope you understood up to this. We have freedom in selecting the potentials because I can add anything or subtract anything from the potential. So judicially, I have to add something or subtract something from the potential and make a final potential. So I have to do that by imposing some convenient constraints between them. So let us see how we'll do that. One example, at least one example we'll see. The example is called the Lorentz condition. Now, to understand Lorentz condition, remember that I have the knowledge of potential functions A and phi. I know that there are two potential functions which are A and phi, but they are not explicitly described or explicitly expressed. So their expression is required to be found out. That is what I am going to try. Right? Now from A and phi, what I can do is I can find electric field and magnetic field. Complete expressions for E and H can be obtained from A and phi. That is the advantage of using A and phi. How to do that? Let us gradually see. I know mu H is equal to curl of A, or B is equal to curl of A. Therefore, mu is equal to curl of the vector potential. So if mu H is curl of vector potential, from that I can say H is equal to 1 upon mu curl of the vector potential. H is equal to 1 upon mu curl of vector potential. Now let us take curl of both the sides. If I take curl of both the sides, curl of H is equal to 1 upon mu, because 1 upon mu is a constant, I take that outside, 1 upon mu curl of A. And we know curl of A is equal to J plus dou D by dou T. So curl of H is equal to J plus dou D by dou T. Therefore, 1 upon mu curl of vector potential is equal to J plus dou D by dou T. D is the displacement current and D is equal to epsilon E. Now, from that, I can say that let me find out what is curl of A. Now you know what is that A cross B cross C is called a vector triple product. And how do you find out that? What is that? An equivalent expression. A cross B cross C is equal to B A dot C minus C A dot B. I call this a back cab rule. BAC CAB. BAC is back, CAB is cab, back cab rule. That is how I remember it. So B A dot C minus C A dot B. This is a vector identity. I urge you or I request the students to prove this identity. A cross B cross C is equal to B A dot C minus C A dot B. If I use that in the previous equation, then I get curl of H is equal to 1 upon mu grad of divergence of A minus del square A. Why? Look at the above equation. Now A is equal to del, B is equal to del, C is equal to A. Now B into A dot C, B is del, del into A dot C, del dot A. That is A del dot A. Then minus C into A dot B. C is A, del dot del is del square. So instead of A staying outside, I have brought it to the right side. Instead of left side, I have brought it to the right side. Reason is del is not only a vector, del is also a scalar. So I can write C A dot B is same as A dot B C. And since del is an operator, I can write it as del square A. So curl of A is equal to 1 upon mu grad of divergence of A minus del square A. Now that is equal to J plus dou D by dou T, because curl of H is equal to J plus dou D by dou T, that you know from Maxwell's equation. Now from this, I can say J plus dou D by dou T is equal to J plus dou D by dou T is equal to J plus epsilon dou E by dou T, as D is the displacement current and D is related to E using the constitutive relations. D is equal to epsilon E. E is independent upon time, being isotropic. So J plus dou D by dou T is equal to J plus epsilon dou T of E. Now that I can again rewrite as J plus epsilon dou T of E is equal to how much? E is equal to minus dou T of A minus grad phi. So I put that value of E. So that becomes J plus epsilon dou T of minus dou T A minus grad phi. Now we'll use them judiciously as we move forward. Now J is equal to, from if I do algebraic multiplication, that becomes J minus epsilon dou square TA minus epsilon dou T grad phi. Now from that what I get? That gives me del or grad of divergence A minus del square A is equal to mu J plus mu dou D dou T. Is equal to mu dou D dou T. How do I get that? That I got from this equation. Curl of H is equal to 1 by mu grad of divergence A minus del square A is equal to J plus dou D dou T multiplied both sides by mu. So left side is grad of divergence A minus del square A, that is equal to mu into J plus dou D dou T, that is equal to mu J plus mu dou D dou T. So that gives me mu J, right hand side can be written as mu J minus mu epsilon dou T square A minus mu epsilon dou T grad phi. So these are just, I am repeating from the previous equation for the J plus dou dt. Now that has contained two quantities, mu epsilon, they are multiplied. Maxwell has already shown that C square is equal to 1 by mu epsilon, which means mu epsilon is equal to 1 by C square. So in place of mu epsilon, put 1 by c square. So that equation transforms to mu j minus 1 upon c square dou square Ta minus 1 upon c square dou t grad phi. Okay. And so from that I get the complete equation as del square A minus grad of divergence of A, that is the first part on the left hand side. I have multiplied minus 1 on both sides. So if I multiply minus 1 on both sides, I get this del square A minus grad of divergence of A minus 1 by c square dou square Ta minus 1 by c square dou t grad phi is equal to minus mu j. Now look at this equation. On the left hand side, I have all the potentials. On the right hand side, I have only the source, J. J is on the right hand side. Left hand side contains all the potentials. So that is the beauty of using the potential. I have got all potentials on one side and the source on the other side, which says that from the source I can find out the potentials. But again there is a problem. I have A and phi together. Vector potential and scalar potential are together. Earlier with the Maxwell's equation, it was the same problem. E field and H field were together. E and H were together. Now also I have A and phi together. The same problem continues. I have to take some action to get rid of this togetherness of A and phi. So how I will do that? And let us see that. Now I will rearrange the left hand side like this. Del square A minus 1 by c square dou square Ta, then minus of grad of divergence A plus 1 by c square dou t grad phi. Right hand side remains as it is, minus mu j. From this we immediately find out or immediately recognize that the first term on the left hand side is a term for the wave equation, which means if A is behaving like a wave, then it will definitely obey the first term. I don't know about the second term, but the first term it will definitely obey. For the second term, what I do is I take the grad part outside, because gradient over a scalar. So I take grad part outside. So grad of divergence of A plus 1 by c square dou t phi. So I have got two terms on the left side, one term on the right side. Now let me see what I can do with this so that I can eliminate phi. So I am going to specify A now. Now specifying the divergence of A, and hence A takes a little bit of thinking on my part. I remembered or I recognized that in that equation, the leftmost part is the wave equation. So the wave equation, what is the wave equation? Del square A minus 1 by c square dou square Ta is equal to minus mu j. But we had this term. That term was there definitely. Mu j is there, left hand term is there. That is, for the wave equation, all terms are there in the equation that we got. But look at the red part. This red part was additional. This additional part was there, and that was creating problem for me, or that is creating problem for us, because that has coupled A with phi. A and phi both are present there. Now the condition for getting the wave equation is that I should make somehow this red term 0, which means this scalar part is to be 0. Gradient over a scalar will be, gradient over 0 will be 0. So I will make this scalar part 0. The scalar part can be constant, gradient of a constant is equal to 0. But I have the choice. That is what I told you earlier, that now we have the choice. It is for us to choose anything. For finding out A and phi, we can choose convenient values. Now my convenient value of choice of constant is 0. So the part within the bracket, I am choosing it as to be a 0. It is a scalar thing. So this scalar part is 0. So divergence of A plus 1 by c square dot phi is equal to 0 is the choice. If we choose this way, then we get only the wave equation. Then I can solve easily for A. Now this choice was given by L. Lorentz, not H. Lorentz. Lorentzian condition that we say, H. Lorentz, he is not responsible for this, but L. Lorentz gave this choice. He took this choice to find out what will be A and what will be phi separately. So this is called the Lorentz condition on A and phi, or this is called the Lorentz-Gauss condition. Now what does this give me? Because I get this Lorentz-Gauss condition, I got the freedom of choosing A. So my freedom now ends. Choosing A freedom, choosing a reasonable A has happened now. I got a wave equation for A that gives me a reasonable value of A, and it indicates that A is obeying a wave, which means there is some sort of radiation. Next. Therefore, this Gauss condition is also called a radiation Gauss condition. So let us discuss about this radiation Gauss condition. Suppose A and phi did not satisfy this constraint. The constraint is, thus we made that scalar is equal to 0. So did not satisfy that constraint. Divergence of A plus 1 upon c square dot phi is equal to 0. This condition is not satisfied by A and phi. If that is not happening, then we can try transform potentials A and phi without these conditions being satisfied. Now what will the procedure? Look at the procedure. The procedure is, first use the Gauss transformation. For the Gauss transformation, what is the Gauss transformation? Phi dash is equal to phi minus dot F, A dash is equal to A plus grad phi. So use that Gauss transformation. Put them here. So that makes it divergence of A dash plus 1 by c square dot phi dash is equal to divergence of A plus 1 by c square dot phi minus 1 by c square dot square Tx minus del square F. So the upper equation becomes this way if I am using the Gauss transformation, which means this needs more appropriate choice of function F. Function F is to be chosen appropriately. This F should be the solution of the inhomogeneous equation. Now look at on the right hand side, there is an inhomogeneous equation, 1 by c square minus del square F. That itself is an inhomogeneous equation or a wave equation which satisfies this condition. Del dot A plus 1 by c square dot phi is equal to 1 by c square dot square T minus del square phi. So the right hand side is a wave equation, left hand side is the forcing function. Therefore, that is another inhomogeneous wave equation. So F must be the solution of the following inhomogeneous equation when if A and phi does not satisfy the condition. Now, if that is true, what is going to happen? Let us consider that. We know del dot D is equal to rho, from which we can say 1 upon epsilon rho is equal to del dot E. Then we know E is equal to minus grad phi minus dou T A. Also, we know divergence of A plus 1 upon C square dou T phi is equal to 0. We know so many things. Now we will use them. Del dot E or divergence of E is equal to divergence of minus grad phi minus dou T A. That is equal to del square phi minus dou T of grad divergence of A. Divergence of A is equal to 1 by C square minus 1 by C square dou T phi. Put that, so I have got dou square phi minus dou T of minus 1 by C square dou T phi. So that I can rewrite as 1 by C square because minus minus plus. So 1 by C square dou square T phi minus del square phi. So this is what I have got for del dot E. Divergence of E has given me this. Again, divergence of E is equal to 1 upon epsilon rho. So 1 upon C square dou square T phi minus del square phi will be equal to 1 upon epsilon rho. So del square phi minus 1 by C square dou square T phi will be equal to minus 1 upon epsilon rho. What I have done is, instead of keeping the time derivative in the beginning, I have taken the space derivative to the beginning. Just multiplied minus 1 on both the sides. Similarly, we have already seen del square A minus 1 by C square dou square T A is equal to minus mu J. So we see that vector potential and scalar potential can be obtained from current distribution and charge distribution. We already saw that Maxwell's equations also involve current distribution and charge distribution, and the fields in Maxwell's equations can be obtained from charge distribution and current distribution. Therefore, if we take potential, then we are again satisfying the Maxwell's equations indirectly. It is not direct representation of Maxwell's equation, but simplification of Maxwell's equation. What has happened here is, in the Maxwell's equation, we had linear first order differential equation. Now we have got second order wave equations. So from Maxwell's equation, if we come to potentials, then we get wave equations which are second order in nature. Otherwise, if we find out from this, if we find out the potentials, then also we can find out the field. Now these are all inhomogeneous wave equations. Why these are inhomogeneous? Because right hand side is not zero. There are some forcing functions on the right hand side. If right hand side becomes zero, they will be called homogeneous wave equations. The solutions will be solution of homogeneous wave equation plus the particular integral. Let us forget that for the time being. We'll gradually see what will be the solution of this wave equation. Now these are inhomogeneous wave equations. The densities of rho and J, rho and J are charge and current density. They will generate the sources for the potential phi and A, and the fields E and B can be expressed in terms of these potentials. Now whether these are correct, whatever I am saying is correct. To see that or to prove that, I will do one thing. From Maxwell's equation, we can easily derive what we call the conservation of charge, right? Or continuity, charge continuity equation, charge current continuity equation. So let me see whether there is conservation of charge from these potentials. If that happens, then these are equivalent to Maxwell's equation. Now for Lorentz condition, what is the Lorentz condition? Del dot A plus 1 by C square dot T phi is equal to 0. That is the Lorentz condition. I have written it in this manner. So for the right hand side, I can write del dot A is equal to del square minus 1 by C square dou square T into del dot A of del dot A plus 1 by C square dou T phi. What I have done here, left hand side 0, right hand side is an expression. So what I will do is multiply both sides by del square minus 1 by C square dou T square. If I do that, left hand side remains 0, right hand side becomes this. Then I algebraically multiply this right hand side and rearrange the terms. If I do that, I get del square of del dot A minus 1 by C square del square T of del dot A plus, that is within bracket. So one term, that is one term. Second term is del square 1 by C square dou T phi minus the third term is 1 by C square dou T square 1 by C square dou T phi. So I'll rewrite that. For the first term, take divergence part common. So del dot within bracket whatever is there, del square A minus 1 by C square dou square T A plus second term dou T I can take common, 1 by C square I can take common. So 1 by C square dou T, so that gives me del square phi minus 1 by C square dou T square phi. Now look the terms which are within the bracket. For A and for phi, the terms which are within the bracket, they are the wave equation terms. Now the first term is del square A minus 1 by C square dou T square A, that is equal to curl of H. So from that you get curl of H is equal to mu J. So del dot mu J. Similarly for the right one, that one gives you divergence of E, that is 1 by epsilon rho. So second one gives you 1 by C square dou T 1 by epsilon rho. Now look at this. All these are the right side. On the left side is 0. Right? Everything is on the right side. On the left side is 0. Take all, in the right side, take all constants outside for each term. So if I do that, I get 0 is equal to mu del dot J plus 1 by epsilon C square dou T rho. Mu is not equal to 0. 1 by epsilon C square is not equal to 0. Therefore, del dot J plus dou T rho has to be 0. That is my continuity equation. So we see that the potentials, vector and scalar potentials, if we take them, then we get back the continuity equation, which we can also get from Maxwell's equation. So expressing fields or finding out fields from the potentials is equivalent to finding out them using Maxwell's equation. So, but this is a easier method, easier technique. Now, what are the significance of what we have discussed up to now? The first significance is comes from the Lorentz condition del dot A plus 1 by c square dot T phi is equal to 0, which means this has decoupled A and phi. We can decouple the equations for the A and phi using this condition. Lorentz condition decouples equations of A and phi. The condition is not decoupled. This application of this condition decouples the equations A and phi. Remember this, the Lorentz condition itself is not a decoupled condition or is not decoupled in A and phi. It decouples A and phi in other equations. So we get wave vector equation because of this decoupling. Wave vector equation is del square A minus 1 by c square dou square T A is equal to minus mu J. This is for A, which is the vector potential. So we call it wave vector equation. From this, we can find out A, or we can solve for A if J is given. Similarly, we get the scalar wave equation, which is del square phi minus 1 upon c square dou square T phi, that is equal to 1 upon epsilon rho of minus. So phi can be solved for specified rho. Now it is easy to compute electric field and magnetic field from this. Why it is easy? Once I know A, I can find out A charge 1 upon mu curl of A. Similarly, if I know if I know A and phi, I can find out E is equal to minus grad phi minus dou T A, or minus that I can rewrite as minus dou T A plus c square integration of grad of del dot A dt. Now you can ask me how I can get that. Look at the Lorentz condition. In the Lorentz condition, del dot A is equal to minus 1 by c square dou T phi. Right? Take grad of both the sides. That gives you grad of del dot A is equal to minus 1 by c square dou T of grad phi. Multiply c square on both the sides. Integrate both the sides with respect to T. So if you do that, then you get on the right hand side grad of phi. So I put that minus grad of phi, which is equal to T square integration of grad of and divergence of A, integration is with respect to T. So I do that. So if I know only A, only the vector potential, I can find both H and E. This is possible because of Lorentz condition. So our solutes are to Lorentz. Right. Let us take a break. This has been some heavy dose for you. Let us take a break for maybe 2-3 minutes. Then I will start with the solution. How to find out the solution.